is Ivan from Chambogo University. You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Yes, next to Ivan is the Honorable Member of Parliament representing the youth of Western Uganda, Honorable Edson Rugumayo. You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Yes, let me begin with Honorable, because this is your constituency. When you talk about education, 90+% of the people involved, when you look at teachers, most of them are young teachers. When you look at the students, and I can say 100% of the students normally are always youth. Now let's look at you as youth leaders. Schools just opened the other day, and some schools are having challenges of both teachers and students are reporting. Even parents perhaps also having challenges. So let's look at you as youth leaders. You have one of the biggest constituencies. How are you helping the Ministry of Education? How are you helping government so that you can mobilize your constituents to go back to school?
Thank you so much, Akol and UBC in general, and our viewers outside there. I want to greet you. One, I really want to appreciate first the Ministry of Education for a wonderful and effective way they have managed to coordinate effectively the activity of reopening of schools. I also want to thank the Ministry of Health, for they did a lot of activities in preparation to the opening of schools, vaccinating the teachers, vaccinating all learners 18 years and above. And also I also want to thank the entire government, all agencies that have been involved in coordinating and making sure that schools open and in a very safe environment. And also thank the President of Uganda, His Excellency General Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, for his steadfast and firm leadership he has offered to this country as we transit and go through this pandemic. It's been a tough season, 2 years, and unfortunately for the 2 years, we have always taken a firm stand against pandemics here in Uganda. We are on record. And for the 2 years, our schools were closed. We met several challenges because of closing of schools. We don't regret it. It was a wise decision because one, saving lives should be priority for any country. And for the 2 years, of course, now that we're opening schools, we were bound to face a number of challenges. One is the students themselves, the pupils see themselves now as if they have grown, and some don't want to go back to the classes they were in. Two, the others have found other jobs that get them 100, 200 shillings, and therefore they say education is meaningless. Three, also, as the country was going through a shock, a lot of economic activity was put on hold. That means the parents have not been earning as they were earning prior to the COVID pandemic. So there are a lot of challenges. Of course, a number of girls got pregnant along the way, so they feel rejected and unacceptable in education institutions. So it's been a lot of challenges, and we are glad that so far it's now getting to a week when school since opened, and it's been a great achievement so far. A number of students have turned up, and I want to appreciate the role that a number of stakeholders have played in churches, the church leaders, the student leaders, the opinion leaders in communities. I have been attending, and they have all been vehemently speaking for the students going back to school, encouraging parents to take back their children to school. And this is where I also want to emphasize that as youth leaders, we have a very great role to play. They say that for any country that secures its future, they must invest in human capital development.
Well, I thank you very much. For any country that secures its future must invest in human capital, and more so the youth, the young people.
Exactly.
Yes, Ivan, as a student at Chambogo University, what is the response at the university? Secondly, you as students, especially because once you are a student at a tertiary institution, you are more focused than those in secondary schools and perhaps primary. How are you coming in to inspire the young boys and girls perhaps who feel, look here, going to school is a waste of time, they are better off beginning a small business to earn a living?
Thank you very much. Before I can respond to your question, allow me to thank everyone and thank the Honorable for coming and for your invitation. As you have earlier echoed, this is the best time it it is timely for him, because him being a youth member of parliament, and we are saying 15 million Ugandans have been locked down for a number of times. So I think this is the best time for him to shine and showcase what he can do. I am at Shambogo University in my final year. I want to first talk to people who think education, because now they have reached an extent of thinking that education is a wastage of time, because they are in desperation, they have lost hope, and many things that have come along with the lockdown. But it is a very miscalculation for anyone to think that is going to survive on the small job or on the small earnings he's getting, and he fails to invest in education. A case in point, when you look at these members of parliament, majority of them, actually this lockdown, majority of them were adding on their books. People we look up to are going to get PhD, masters, and you ask yourself, you have not completed senior 4, you feel that the education you have is enough. So it is a very miscalculation. And even when you look at different political spaces, different social spaces, everywhere, not in Uganda, because it is not a must that you must be in Uganda. But everywhere you go, at least you must have papers. And therefore,
you must have papers or skills, because this is
of course,
this is where we lose the point. We've seen people who have the papers without the skills, and we've seen those skills without the papers.
But on a number of occasions in Uganda today, realistically, without papers, even when you have skills, sometimes you are left behind. I'm not in any way saying that it is bad to have skills. In fact, it should be the priority. But along the way, as you are having skills, they will award you a certificate, they will award you a paper, an academic document that is going to prove that Mr. So and so completed this certain level of education, and he qualifies to do a particular job. So first of all, the parents, majority of the stakeholders, parents, government, schools. Actually, schools now, like when you look at his district in Ntoloko and other districts in Western Uganda, then when you go to the north and to the east, majority of schools are giving a friendly picture to students. One, not because they want, but because of the state they are in. The conditions are very worrying. I was watching news some time back of last week, but you could see the schools are reopening, but some are reopening under the trees, some are reopening in very serious bad conditions, then others are hiking the tuition prices. By the way, recently there are some parents who went in a certain school and they asked the administration to increase tuition because they don't want other parents to congest them in their school.
Well, so hold on to your point. That is actually very scary, and it goes for government's
before you go,
yes.
I think the government should come in to regulate, so that it creates an environment that everyone can access. Yes, because there is no way how you own and personalize a school that other people should not come, they are congesting you.
Well, thank you very much. I'm happy that we have a legislator who's there to speak for the vulnerable, for the voiceless. But let's back to Honorable. You, as youth members of Parliament, you have one of the largest or biggest constituency, and you actually, your role is more than these that represent a sub-county or two sub-counties that have constituencies that are smaller. I remember in the good olden days, the days of the likes of Honorable Okwiri, the likes of Honorable Kidega, the Nusrati Peru, they used to move around inspiring young people. And good enough, you've been through the ladders from student leadership to UNSA to National Youth Council, and now to Parliament representing the young people. This is the most critical time that we young people need to be inspired so that they can go back to school, perhaps so that they can realize their dreams. what strategies as youth members of parliament have you put in place so that you can actually use this particular time in inspiring young people not to abandon schools?
Thank you so much. And I want to emphasize, we have always used this narrative that there is nothing that should be for youth without the youth. In mobilizing the young people to go back to school, this campaign must be spearheaded by young people, the faces that they are familiar with and more friendly with. I am glad and I want to appreciate there are a number of young people who have approached me with already laid up plans on how they want to mobilize their colleagues to go back to school. Of course, the region is very expansive. I cannot say I would reach in every single district, but I've received numerous numbers of documents, and these are youth leaders who have started campaigns in their districts, and they say, okay, hello, come in and help. And what we have been doing is linking them to, for example, the resident district commissioners and saying, hello, RDC, please allocate time to these students, let them have an opportunity to speak to the young people who can understand them better. We have been trying to link them so that they can have ample space to talk to those students. But also, what is most effective is the person to person. In the small vacations, small holiday that we have had, I've had a chance to interact with a number of young people. Parents would call me and say, hello, we are having challenges here. This young daughter here feels now she's above the class. And you go and sit down and try to talk to them, and you try to listen to understand them from their perspective. And you try to tell them that, hello, you're being deceived in a wrong way. Your age is deceiving you. So they have several excuses. I am going back to a class, I am old, I am big, I can't fit in, they will not accept me. I want to talk to the students who are listening to me, they're out there, and you've not yet gone back to school. I would encourage you that what you've seen now is very little. The greatest lies ahead. Your future is still so much ahead of you. But your future can only be secured if you pick up your bag, ask your parent to help you go back to school. Pursue your goal, but the only goal you can pursue now and achieve is when you've gone through education. I want to encourage you, please, if you've seen your body change, maybe you got pregnant during this lockdown, that should not kill all your future. Your future is in getting back to school. Get that document, get that skill. Now, on the question of Ivan, which he raised on the skill and paper, of course we are noting a lot of concern that as youth leaders, we're not only interested in youth going back to school, we're interested in what type of education they also want to attain. So at tertiary level, of course, we are saying it's important that youth continue to now destigmatize TVET, technical and vocational training. It is very much important that the mindset that we have had since colonial times, that TVET is for the underprivileged, we should shift from that and now focus on getting the skill. The skill is much more important than just a document, but all the two are very much complementary and are very important for someone to succeed in life. So we are encouraging young people, if you've reached at a tertiary level, the choice of education you make, do not choose just general education because you want to satisfy your parents or the community. No. Choose to go for education that will mean and will help you and get gainful employment. So it's very important that you make that decision rightfully. It's no longer the old archaic way of saying you're the first degree in the district, the first degree in the community. It doesn't help. What helps now is you getting to choose a type of education that will help you once you're out of school, you have something to earn and your life starts immediately, other than spending 5 years in the shelf of being unemployed or unemployed.
Well, I bring a very critical point, because now gone are the days where really people would study just to be the first person in the family, in the community, in the sub-county to acquire a degree. At least now every community, every village now has really a graduate or two. But the question is, what is it that you are studying? Or after you've acquired the paper, perhaps how do you go for retooling so that you can fit into the labor market? Now, back to Ivan, university students, since the pre-independence days, were used to inspire young people. You used to inspire young people whenever they would come and perhaps talk to those in A-level, O-level, and people would say, yes, I would also wish to be like so and so. Now, do you still have the same practice as university students, that during the holidays during the long vacations when actually secondary schools are on, do you have those associations like maybe Mitoma University Students Association? Do you have such arrangements that you move around the schools, secondary schools around your area to inspire both the parents and the students?
Thank you very much. It is a wonderful question. And I have a number of occasions told you that I was a culprit, or I was maybe one of the people who was inspired by university students. I earlier told you, I think it was last year, that when I was still in primary at Mtoma Junior School in P5, I was inspired. But I built the mentality in myself that I must get to campus at all costs. So those associations are there, but they are not yet, they are not serious as they used to be. Because, for example, actually now, like at Chambogo, every district is having an association. Ask him also, when he was at Makerere University, he was the president of students from Ntoroko. He knows. And even in Makerere, those things are there. In different universities, they are there. Like at my university, there is Mtoma University Students Association, Ntungamo. Every people from different region, they are having those associations. But now, we are facing the challenge of monetary and politicization of everything. Actually now, the politics of the country are centering on the university students, and they are becoming, I think, they are diverting them from their primary role. Because everyone imagines that once someone is at university, at least he's old enough, he's understanding, and at least he can scale where the future is placing him. Is having that ability to advise, like you have said, the parents, the high school students, to help them make right choices, for example, when they are going to make combinations after senior 4. But now everything is now, they look at money, they look at politics. So I think we have had a bad example from some, I want you to mark my language, from some of our leaders. I think they have not done also their best, because even those associations need serious people or serious leaders to also run them. You cannot have a patron who has never appeared in any of the meetings. Even when you make maybe a certain event, he or she does not appear. You find students are running the associations independent of themselves. And you see the money they have is always young, and those activities need money. So I think the back days, that's what I assume, because I was not there, I was still a young man, I was still a teenager. So maybe there were serious people who were committed and could give time, and they knew the impact. In fact, now all this, like what Honore was saying, encouraging, counseling, and what they should now, the government, I think, and leaders, actually now, since he is here, the free advice I would give him to make the educational business lucrative is to engage in guiding and counseling students. Actually, they should establish units in every school to make sure that those services are available there. Children who have access to the school, and the teachers. By the way, we focus much on children, but we forget teachers. Even the teachers are very desperate. We have been watching on TV, some were laying bricks, were in these common businesses, which we tend to say that they are assuming businesses. So the moment we focus on students and assuming they are upright, but teachers are still lacking, still we have a challenge, because the school is not made up of students only.
Well, thank you very much, Ivan. You raised quite a number of pertinent issues. Back to Honorable, as a Member of Parliament representing the youth, the Advantage Uganda, I think, has one of the most robust and structures of youth. You have almost every district having a district youth council, a sub-county youth council. We also have the Uganda National Students Association, UNSA, having structures from national to district, from district up to school level, that I feel you as youth leaders, you can easily use these structures to ensure that all schools out there mobilize the students and teachers to go back. So to what extent are you engaging these structures in Western Uganda?
Thank you so much. Like I had already explained to you, I in constant contact with the several leaders. Some of them approach in need of support, and you find ways of supporting. That means there is a great link that we are putting in place, facilitating, because the region being expansive, you cannot reach everywhere. So the best effective way is to use the structures, and which we are using. I want to appreciate the number of female affairs secretaries who have approached me, and they say, hey, I'm going back to my district to make sure I mobilize as many young people as possible to go back to school. And you say, oh, I'll come in with whatever I can to support you to go. And then also give them a message. You see, this is how you should approach a young person. Do not just be insistent. You have to find a way of... that we are doing. We are engaging them. We are trying to make sure they focused and know that the primary agenda now for this January is still going back to school as much as possible. In every opportunity they are given in the community to engage them, and we are telling them, please, if you're engaging your community, this should be the discussion that now is ongoing. You are given an opportunity to speak at a village meeting or a barrio or what. This should be your emphasis. You alone are most capable to appeal to the young people, so please use the opportunity, and that is what we are maintaining. We're also using text messages to keep passing on messages to them and encouraging them to make it their personal message everywhere they go. So we hope that at the end of it all, they will also receive gratification and say, hey, thank you very much for the contribution you made. Yeah.
Well, Ivan, in the bid or in the struggle or the efforts to really mobilize students, teachers, and the communities, where is the hurdle, where is the challenge, perhaps, that you would feel you should share it out with the listener, or perhaps if you had chance to meet the technocrats in the Ministry of Education, what is it that you feel is the greatest challenge, that if there is any way they can perhaps start addressing it before it's too late?
Thank you very much. Challenges are very many. There are very, very many challenges. You see, we have spent almost 2 full years when we are still in lockdown. And even, I guess, if this studio was left 2 years without using it, it would turn into something else. So first of all, the schools are in dire conditions. We have had a number of challenges in the lockdown, but we find some schools were taken off by heavy rains. Some they are unashlast. Some they robbed, thieves came and robbed off offices. So you find many schools are now facing challenges of, one, scholastic materials. Secondly, bringing back teachers to class. It is still also a challenge. Then thirdly, students coming. We have, I think we have all of us embraced the technological advancement, but on social media we have been seeing students who have tried to go back to school. Many of them are in tight-fitting uniforms. They feel they have that psychological twist within them, but actually majority of them are there not because they want, but because it is a routine. So like I echoed, they need to make a clear agenda for for mindset change. Because now, the moment you will just encourage students to just go to school, yes, which they can do, but going to school itself alone, it is not enough. I need them to establish certain teams, and it is going to be actually, if you use this time honorably, profitably, it is going to be a shining time for you in the history of Uganda. I never thought that they could lock down a country the way they did. Actually, even up to now, I'm still wondering. But I know now, but the moment they have opened, they still have their capacity. Resources are not enough. And honorable, the advice, even I can add you, is one, your personal resources will not help you. Because yourself, you have problems, and they are not enough. You are representing the whole of Western Uganda. It is a very big region. So it is to use your office to advise the government or responsible offices, lobby funds, because all these things we shall not stop on talking. You will encourage students to go, it's okay, they will go under the trees, they will go, and you will find they're impregnating themselves.
Well, thank you for that. I think you, of course, hinted on something that should not really take us away from the cherished traditions we've had in schools. That since time immemorial, schools have not been hiring people to clean the compound. That has always primarily been the role of students.
Yes.
That definitely whenever schools, it has been the tradition that as schools are opening, the bush has gone up, but then has grown, overgrown, and when they report within the first week, it is to slash, to clean the classes. So this is what we need to see. That head teachers and teachers now should tell us, look here, because before the students reported, this was the situation, but now you can see. So this is what we need to see, and that really shouldn't actually incur. I think it is also time we need to demystify funds. That there is no funds for this, there is no funds for that. Now, Honorable, getting back to you, because now here comes the issue of mobilizing community, the issue of mobilizing people of goodwill, because it is said that it takes two to produce a child, but it takes a whole community to raise a child. Definitely, as the entire youth of Western Uganda are proud that you are their flag bearer. So now let's look at the inculcating the spirit of helping one another, helping a child's neighbor go to school. How would you help in this particular crusade so that the message can get out to the parents, to the community, that if you have the capacity, you can help a neighbor's child go back to school?
Thank you so much, Akol. Before I go to the latter question, I would like to hint on a few things that Ivan mentioned. First of all, when I started here, I said I want to appreciate the Ministry of Education and the government of Uganda generally, because prior to this opening of schools, there is a lot that has been done. Actually, almost 170 billion was put aside for government to facilitate schools to refurbish them. All government-aided schools almost in general received around 62.5 billion.
Which wasn't enough.
Which is not enough. Yeah. Of course, it will never be enough. Of course, the country is, the resource envelope is restrained. So you can see there is an effort. Two, on the issue of teams. There are several teams. There were trainers of trainers that the Minister of Health put in, the education officers and several other officers that have been put in the districts to help coordinate this. And three, there are of course a number of education institutions, both government and private, which were in bad shape. For example, we have 51 schools that were devastated by calamities. All these ones, government could not come in immediately and refurbish them and put them back in place. But at least there's been advice. For example, that the local governments can find places for the meantime where students can converge and be taught, meanwhile as they wait for government intervention to make sure these schools come back in place. Personally, when they come from Toroko district, there are two sub-counties that were covered underwater. So up to today, these students have not yet got anywhere to go as of now. But the emphasis government is saying that for now, find somewhere they can go, be studying as government finds an intervention to make sure that they reinstate these schools. So you can see there is commitment by government. There is commitment by government to make sure that this runs very fast and smoothly. Students go back to school. But of course, we must understand that we live in a country where the resource envelope is very much constrained. So we must accept that, but keep pressing, of course. I would want to encourage all the leaders that are out there to quickly get up and utilize. There is a school facility grant that is put at Ministry of Education. So these leaders have to come quickly, lobby and make sure that envelope is put there, and they utilize it to make sure the schools get back to standard.
Now, you're talking about schools. I want you to imagine a school deep there in Toroko. How do you help them to perhaps apply? How do they get that information? Because such a grant, I think, favors schools in urban centers who can access internet, who can do this. So schools in the rural area, where do they go to apply? Are the officers of the DEO inspectors of schools?
Yes,
are they helping?
DEOs should be able to give this information to them, and actually it should be the district leadership saying we have these schools that were heavily affected, and therefore we need intervention here and here. So that's why I'm calling upon leaders to wake up, and this money is at. By the way, do you know that the education sector in Uganda is the most funded? This year's budget, the year that we are concluding, the Ministry of Education received 7.7 trillion Uganda shillings. It was the most funded sector. So I want to believe, and I am very much hopeful, that if this money is well utilized, the education sector will quickly pick up. We shall, of course, you've known we're going to implement the abridged curriculum to make sure that the students catch up as quickly as possible, which is a good initiative. It is expensive. It will involve training the teachers to make sure they catch up with this, but it is a good initiative. It is good commitment. You've seen the small changes that have all along. There has been this kind of moral standard that a pregnant child should not go back to school, but you've seen that the government has made a stance, and the stance is whether you're pregnant, whether you've given birth, if you can, please go back to school.
I think so that can be debated for another day, because we still have.
This is very good commitment by government, and I really want to appreciate all the stakeholders who are playing in this. You have also noted that the recently Ministry of Gender is implementing an initiative with another partner NGO where they are giving out assistance to private teachers in private schools. The banking institutions have been convinced to waive a lot of interest on earlier accrued loans. So there is commitment by government, and I want to appreciate that. Then on the question of helping a neighbor, which I would like to emphasize and tell our communities there, I am a sole believer that our communities are very important to us. Success of an individual in an entire community does not yield so much. A neighbor's success is more of a success to you. It is not good for one person to have electricity in the village. It is important that
have running water.
Or have running water in the village. It is important that if one must have running water, let the village have as much as possible. Secondly, to our privileged people in our communities, it is important you understand that, for example, if you come from a community where you are well off, you are looked up to, you are privileged, it is important that you look aside and see all the others that are underprivileged. As you push your child to go and succeed through education, also think of the future, that if the others do not succeed, then they are a burden for your child. So it is important that whatever you do, think of the rest that surround you. If they have the will to send their children to school, come in support with the little you have to make sure they can also succeed, because the success of those children someday will help you and your family and your children succeed. It is very much important that we live and continue to live in Ubuntu. Ubuntu is a very special, rare norm in Africa. We need to uphold it. That is why for most members of parliament, it is normal that you even go overboard to borrow and do what, to make sure you help as many as possible young people go back to school. It is important. We need to help others succeed.
Well, thank you very much, Honorable. Definitely, no one can get to the ladders of success without having a helping hand. That it is always natural that we succeed just because there are people before us who actually laid the foundation for us to succeed. Yes, now getting back to Ivan, of course, the issue is mobilizing for schools, and mobilizing students, mobilizing teachers, mobilizing parents, and you were looking at teachers. And now this takes me to the social media, which is being especially used by the youth to demonize the reopening of schools. You're seeing a young boy fighting a teacher. You're seeing a teacher boxing. So, I mean, there's a lot of negativity on social media trying to demonize the whole process. And now this calls for young people like you to come up with the different clips, trying to paint the other picture, so that now students and teachers, because some teachers actually may fear going to class, is this the situation? Because they're trying to paint the reopening of schools as if teachers are going for war.
Thank you very much. And I don't know how the government is going to how the government, parents, and all other stakeholders to overcome this, because initially they were against social media, against young people getting on social media. But when COVID came, it was the only option. They started using social media, Facebook, TVs, WhatsApp to study. So now, actually, I very much think majority of students are having phones in schools, which is very dangerous.
Especially from A level and above.
Actually, even O level. Actually, even O level and A level, they're having those phones. And now it is going to take an extra effort for such students to get in class and concentrate. One, I think that's what I have earlier echoed, that they need mental rehabilitation, both teachers and students. Not to use a lot of force, like maybe previously, to combat the indiscipline of students. But you sit them down and you talk to them. The moment someone is psychologically tuned to what is right, you will not need a lot of effort to bring him back to normal. But now the challenge will come that you find teachers already, even them teachers, are mentally twisted. They still have that, because you see our schools, we must acknowledge, like he has said, that the funds, the envelope of funds is not always enough. So underpayment is there. And as if that is not enough, even the large or huge amounts of money that are allocated to the Ministry of Education, we need to look at how the institution is corrupt free, to make sure that the little resources that are allocated there are definitely used to do what it is supposed to do.
Well, thank you very much, Ivan. You know, what is happening on social media calls for patriotism. That before you can post, because this is an effort that everybody should join, mobilizing parents, mobilizing so that schools can open without a hitch. But now, the clips that are being actually got, some even are not from the Uganda, but are circulating to paint a bad picture of what really is actually happening, which is not right.
Actually, before you go to Honorable,
yeah, no, you'll come in later. But Edson, Honorable Edson, as so I happen to come from one of the border districts in Western Uganda, and there was a teacher who told us that somebody who told us that one of the reasons why he left teaching is that during those days of smuggling, is that he would come to a class and the students were smarter than him. You find that students having good trousers, have good shoes, they have good watches, and here was the man really who was actually struggling to buy even a shirt. So don't you think we are going to have a repeat of the same, because now some students are coming out from lockdown, they've been working, and perhaps they are going to appear different from what they used to be.
Definitely, some of those things are bound to happen. Of course, some young people have been doing, some went into border riding, some went into businesses, so they have some little money. And of course, our teachers are always struggling financially. So those are bound to happen, but this is short term. I would want to re-echo that, you know, people just think that others join the profession of teaching for money. There are those who join the profession of teaching because it is a passion.
It's a call.
It is a call.
Yes.
It is a calling. So I would want to appeal to the teachers that being in the profession of teaching is a calling for you. I would want to encourage you that the best you can do is to transform whichever young person is in front of you, impart the best discipline in them. No, and the teachers have built, the teachers of Uganda are very resilient. Indeed, I've seen a number of videos of girls and boys and fighting and all that. But I wouldn't want us to be derailed from the main course. The reality is whatever characters that these young people have come with from home, it is the duty now of the teachers. By the way, this lockdown has helped a number of parents to realize how important education was. A number of parents just mid the lockdown were complaining, and you'd hear them saying, we didn't know that what teachers go through. Now they have tested and they know what it really means by handling young people. they are very chaotic, they are very stubborn sometimes, so, but the teachers have always handled them anyway. So I want to commend the resilience of teachers, and I believe that all this wave will go away. The wave of maybe violence, the students have gone back to school, they feel they have added a little bit of mass more than they left school, so they want to show it off. I think that will be for a short time, but good students, of course, will immediately focus, have discipline, commit to your task, have a goal, the goal that has taken you back to school, rethink and repurpose yourself, and pay attention. Whether the teacher is smaller than you, understand that they have been given a task to mentor you, to transform you, and to make you a responsible citizen. So obey them, listen to them, learn from them, because it is all about you. The teacher is doing their part in life. You are also being called to do yours in life. So respect them and make sure you excel.
Well, thank you, Honorable. Definitely, we're talking about the teachers. A good teacher is that transforms a student academically and also character-wise. So that you can only become a successful teacher if you are proud that you've transformed a number of students and made them realize their potential and they succeed in life, no matter what you go through. Yes. Ivan, as a budding teacher or as a teacher in making, you are joining a profession where actually the rule is you better use your broken tools than actually using your bare hands. And this is actually the phrase now works well in this particular situation. That you can't say that, well, I'm just running away from, and they say winners don't quit and quitters don't win. So how do you instill a winning spirit in your fellow teachers who are already out there in the field?
Of course, there is no profession where you will find that everything is perfect. Like how some people say there is no perfect world. For me, I feel every profession you can achieve for as long as you are you begin or you enter that profession with passion. But teaching profession in Uganda, particularly in our country, because this is the country I understand very well, better than others, is a bit constrained, is having a number of challenges. However, to those who have committed themselves to teaching, do it with passion. Because like Honorable Okod, he said some teachers are there for money and others are there with passion. But at this time with this pandemic, sometimes also passion may not bring food on your table. They are going through a lot, and actually majority of them now they have gone back to their respective schools not because they want. That's why I say that as we are giving mental rehabilitation to students, teachers should be also put into consideration, and we make them realize that what they are doing, they can achieve their life goals. So as long as they do it with passion. And meanwhile also the government should come in to make sure that they improve the well-being and standards of teachers. I wanted to bring in the other point before you, Honorable, came in, that we are going to have a scenario that in Uganda now we have 2 classes of schools. Because I have seen in northern Uganda, a certain school, they were under trees, and it was the building, a funny building made out of mud. It collapsed during lockdown because of heavy rains, and majority of students were there under the trees. But someone with like Central Uganda, this Central region, we must acknowledge that it has better schools with better buildings. Even an example of Ntare, where he finished in Western, they are there. Every region is having good schools. Those schools are being occupied by children of rich people. So we are going to have a scenario that we have people who are receiving first-class education, and then we have Bonawasome. And the Bonawasome student rarely will exceed senior 4. Personally, I studied in Bonawasome. But my OBs...
But you're at university now.
I'm at university now, but I went there for a short while, 2 weeks. But if you look at my OBs, none of them is now somewhere. So an indication that, yeah, the government, I thank the government that it has promoted widespread education. People have moved to schools. Nowadays, it is the song of the day. Even when you go on social media, everywhere they are talking about school fees and requirements. An indication that they appreciate the education that is existing. But we must make sure that we improve the education. Otherwise, we are going to have an imbalanced country or society. You have people who are extremely educated, and those ones will always be a small number, and they will constrain these big numbers who are not well equipped with skills and educated. They are going to constrain the small number, and we are going to be risking the country's development.
Yes, Honorable, what he raises actually falls within within your constituents. That the education system we are having is actually widening the gap between the rich and the poor. That somebody in Kabong will find their kids going to Kabong primary, maybe Kabong secondary, and the best they can go, the best they can is going to Kotido PTC or Kotido Technical. So how do we create equity within our education system? Of course, I cannot talk about equality because the word equality is only found in the dictionary in the real world. But at least, how do we have an education system that at least caters for equity?
Allow me respond to the issue that Ivan first raised. That was on the livelihood of teachers. One, we must appreciate that no matter what we went through lockdown for 2 years, government remained committed to making sure all government teachers earn their salary. So whether the teachers left because they were earning salary without working and went into other private business, they must understand and appreciate that government remained committed towards them.
Now, if I can come in shortly, Honorable, the teacher here that is being talked about is not the teacher who is on government payroll.
I was getting to that.
Okay.
Two, the government, in a show of concern, has come up with an extension, or leave alone the other money that government put out to give to everyone. Like I earlier said, there is an initiative by the Ministry of Gender now with a partner where they are extending support to the private teachers, which is still ongoing even up to today. They are still entering the information. That should show commitment enough that government is interested. And actually government appreciates a lot that 50% of the contribution is coming from private sector, and even much more. So really on talking about the livelihood of teachers, I am seeing a lot of progress. I've seen, for example, government is expanding its recruitment. They have a target of around 2,000 teachers to be recruited. There are a number of seed schools that the government is going to be constructing, and all these are to bring more teachers to on board for government payroll. So there is a lot of commitment on that other side. And the other question which you raised on the classification of education, government, for example, has in place UPE. I am personally a product of UPE. So whoever stands up and says UPE does not guarantee a future, I am one. When you read my certificates, my PLOE is Makondo Primary School, which is a government school. Well, I may not have gone there all through the time. I could have done, but it is UPE, and there are so many other people who are excelling from UPE. Yes, there are so many other who are excelling from UPE. Then two, government has in place USE, which allows as many as possible to get in because of being underprivileged. And that raises the question of saying, what much more would you want government to do apart from being, because this government is much more mass-centered. It wants as many as possible to get through school, and that is what you have to appreciate. But many more are going to school now. On the question of those better schools, yes, there are those other schools that have a cost-sharing basis. A cost-sharing, government has something they put in, and then the parents have something they put in. Of course, you don't expect them to perform the same way like the other ones that are reliant on only government. You also, of course, there is a notable increase. There are some schools which have been hiking school fees, and government has also been quite stance on that. They have been quite clear that please be considerate of what, because these are private institutions which you can't say now we are going to tune here, make sure you cut. No, these are private institutions, and our economy here is a free economy. So we are very much alert. As leaders, we are very much alive to some of these realities. Like I said, of course, the school you're mentioning in some part of northern Uganda, of course, there are several schools. Like we said, the constraints of the resources, some of those things you need to put into consideration. Not every school you will find in every district should be equivalent to entire school that I went to. It might not be like that. It takes time for a government.
Well, thank you, Honorable. I can see time is not our best ally, and we are going for the final round. Of course, as you're saying, even in the US, not all universities are at the same level, or even in UK, not all schools. But what we are calling for is equity, not equality. Equity, so that at least the gap is not as wide as we said. Now, Ivan, you're parting shot. You last word to the viewer out there.
I thank you very much for taking your time to listen and watch our discussion. But for me, the major emphasis which I would emphasize is we should allow, much as we appreciate the government for all the efforts, but we should make sure that the corruption levels. President gave 10 million last year in first lockdown. Up to now, private teachers have never seen that money.
10 billions, not
10 billions. Yes. So the issue of corruption is the one letting down the government. I may not blame it because I may not blame that it has not tried its best, but I want it also go an extra mile to make sure that the corruption levels are low and we have those resources given to the education sector and perform their duties. Otherwise, I call upon every parent, every stakeholder, a teacher, a student, that please let us do the needful. Education is the way to go. Whatever you think that will make you have a bright future, I think that is you are a daydreamer, but we must go through education.
Well, thank you very much. Yes, Honorable, your last word to
thank you so much, Akol and UBC, for hosting us here. I would like to appreciate every parent out there who, amidst all these constraints, has managed to pull together all the resources, and you've been able to send your boy child or your girl child back to school. I want to thank you for being a good citizen and for loving your country, and for loving yourself and loving the future of your children. I also want to thank all the students that have been obedient and have gone back to school. I want to ask those who are still at home to listen to the elders, listen to what we have to tell you, that the future, your future, and the future of your community lies in you. But only that is possible if you go back to school, add value to yourself, so that you can also add value to your community. Leave whatever you're doing, you will have time for it. Go back to school, study, add value to yourself. Now, lastly, as a parting shot, for those who have reached a level of tertiary education and you are battling on where to go, I want you to do away with the forever ongoing stigma that has been ongoing since colonial time, that only education is the education you get when you go to a university or for general education. Consider or think that the best way maybe perhaps today could be you getting to a technical college, getting a skill that ensures that immediately you get out of school, you have something you can do with your hands, and you can earn and make a living. So please, in making your choices, make sure you are a part of a generation that is thinking outside the box, that is not bound by stigma, that is not bound by the old ways of saying, please, you must be the only degree in the village, you must be the degree in the community. Let us focus on education that makes you earn a living. Thank you so much.
Well, I must thank you very much, Ivan from Chambogo University, and also Honorable Edson Ogmayo, Youth Member of Parliament for Western Uganda, for really making time and coming to share with the viewer out there, especially those that keenly follow our education program here on UBC. And I must say that as the Nigerians say, that there is enough space for every bird to fly in the air. So as parents, please look at your resource envelope and take your children where you feel actually you can afford. Must thank you for this program, and Akola Mazima is my name, saying bye-bye. Always tune into UBC TV. Together we inspire Uganda.
The auction of 2022 is here. Kubeila easy. To bid on any of our selected items, a Bajaj Boda Boda, brand new laptop, a smartphone, free.